Did that work? Hey, everybody. It did work. I can see it. Okay. How is everyone doing? I know. Elephant in the room. I am not Coach Dakota. He underwent a very small procedure, I guess you could say. I don't know what to call wisdom teeth removal these days. Is that a big procedure, small procedure? It seems like something that a lot of people get. But we wish Coach DBA well. He did deliver a message to me in Discord that basically just said, I did great, and buy the dip. Just reminding us all to buy the dip, whether it's today, tomorrow, tonight, an overnight session, and anytime in the future, just buy the dip. That was the message that post anesthesia Coach Dakota decided to leave the Topstep team. So we had some laughs. But if you are, I guess, live under a rock or do not know who I am Nick4ATick, also known as Nick on TopstepTV. If you haven't caught me and Dakota on Mondays, I guess if you don't know who I am at this point, and because I usually am on Dakota's show as well on Tuesday nights, that is who I am. I hope I can fill Dakota's shoes on tonight's episode of Slow Markets. If you guys have ever seen me trade, Globex is my least favorite trading opportunity of of these sessions. So this may be a little weird. We're going to get weird. It's all good. We're going to talk a little bit about today's session. We're going to talk a little bit about what's been going on this week. If we found a trade, by all means, maybe I will take one, but that may or may not happen tonight. So if that's what you're here for, to get trade signals, to find entries, to copy Coach Dakota, well, you can do that maybe tomorrow night or Thursday night. I'm not sure if he's going to be fully recovered tomorrow, but we will still dive into the markets. We'll kind of take a peek, like I said, at what happened today. We can talk about things that we usually would talk about with Coach Dakota. I will go over, all of the big four. We'll talk about crude. We'll talk about the S&P. We'll talk about the NASDAQ. We will talk about everything and anything you guys want to talk about. So please, just before we even kind of get started, keep in mind, it's not a signals class. I don't have Dakota's risk disclosure unless someone wants to throw that in the chat behind the scenes for me. But even if I do take a trade tonight, this is not trading advice. This is not a signals class. This is an educational opportunity for you guys to learn a little bit about, the way I look at the markets. I know we usually learn from Coach Dakota, but he's obviously not here. So we will try to find the appropriate opportunities if one does present itself. When long, when short, we will find out. If there are any, I will let you know. But as I said earlier, when I was coming on the air, Coach Dakota says, buy the dip coming out of anesthesia. So if there's not a better message to come on when you are, a better message to execute your trading than something like that coming out of anesthesia or coming off narcotic drugs to, get a trade thesis, that's about as good as it gets, folks. Buy the dip. All right. So as I said, since we're going to be kind of going through probably the big four and talking about a number of things, I want to use tonight's session a little bit more loosely just because it's just me. This is not my show. I'm covering for Dakota. So let's keep it a relatively open forum tonight. If there's something you wanted me to talk about or you have questions about, throw it in the chat. We will grab it. We will get to it towards the end of tonight's session. I have absolutely no idea how long this is going to go. If it goes an hour, if it goes 90 minutes, like it sometimes does, we will do that. So please get your questions in the chat and we will get to them when we can. But let's talk a little bit about the S&P so far. It looks like everything is working just fine, audio and visual. I probably should have double checked that before I really started my whole spiel there, but it sounds like nobody was yelling at me in the chat. So let's talk about the S&P 500. We're on ES, and if you were trading today, you kind of had for lack of a better word, an interesting session. It was a pretty tight opening range when we kind of were starting in the AM. I was actually looking for shorts after I had shortly longed. It was in the NASDAQ. So we'll talk about my, failed trading day when we get to the NASDAQ, since that's the only thing I took a trade on today. But ES was basically just hanging around those lows in the pre-market. Pretty much if you guys remember Sundays, I think I deleted my pivot for the week, but it was sitting right around here. Actually, no, it was a little higher. It was whatever, 70s to 80s was kind of the spot that I threw it in. Basically last week's value area low. So I guess it was a little higher. But we were kind of just teetering around this level for the last, session and a half. We pierced through it early, Monday, during that kind of sell-off that we had, I guess, if you were watching fast markets, where I top ticked the NASDAQ and only caught like 40 points of it. And we went on to, waterfall like 200 points. So on ES, the same thing. We kind of went and retested the areas of last week's low again in the pre-market, and we really were unable to kind of, build any volume, get any enthusiasm to want to really sell this market down, which is something we talked about on Sunday specifically, saying if we were to lose like 80s and, kind of found buyers in the 60s, I would look to get along with them. And that's pretty much what happened today. It was that slow death by, chop type move up that we had pretty much from 9 a.m. the central time down to the euro close. And then we had that weird move right around lunchtime. Let me jump to a shorter time frame. Let's go like 15 minutes. You had this kind of wild, slow grind, and then eventually this massive push up. It looks way worse on the NASDAQ when we look at it that way. But you just kind of saw this, pierce all the way back towards, that's the wrong one. Sorry, it was this one over here. I'm looking at this incorrectly. So we basically just started building, and we went all the way back up towards, I can't even think, 906, 907s, whatever it was today, or 905s. We sold off from right around 1 p.m. Central. We kind of just started losing that intraday high came down, and then we went to power hour and we built back up. And then we saw a pretty violent flush back to 5850s SPX, which was kind of the big option strike for today's session. So kind of a tough trading session to really attack. If you made money today, good for you. I would assume it would be on the long side. Holding anything short was kind of insane. I know Dakota had a great morning. I did not. I unfortunately fumbled a long. Let's talk about my long. I fumbled a long in the NASDAQ. If you guys remember what it was yesterday, or it was Monday, I longed in the pre-market right around 350s. It was 356 exactly. And I cut it for around, like 402s, I think, right before the opening bell, just to kind of get out. I never loved trading pre-market. I never loved trading after hours. Same logic. I just don't enjoy kind of the slow death by whatever, volatility that we sometimes don't really get during these times of day. But naturally, I missed a nice 200-point run to the top side, ended up catching that short at 550 and only caught, once again, about 40 points of it before we went all the way down, retested that overnight low, and I missed, a lot of those points. And that's pretty frustrating. And the reason I bring up this trade specifically, or these two trades, is it made me kind of think the not only, hey, you should be holding a runner a little bit more, especially to the long side, but you really need to let your stops play out. So I say that because today, once again, Nick longed, what was it? 369 in the pre-market. This lovely little candle right here, this red one, that's this one. I longed it, right around 7:45, I think, maybe around our 8 a.m., whatever time it was, and cut it, I think, in the 90s, 95s. So basically a very similar trade that I took on Monday pre-market, I took again today. And rather than letting it ride, I took my profit. I was happy, kind of waited and was patient a little bit in the open, but then took a short. And since I wasn't still kind of in this trade, I ended up getting run over. My stop got run over, my first attempt short. And then since I basically was missing this entire move to the north side because I decided to flatten a trade instead of letting it play out, basically my third trade in a row doing that and seeing it continue to run, I got tilted. And I got tilted to the point that I was just forcing shorts and longs in this kind of consolidation chop area that we had, in that pre-euro close type part of the day. And what it led me to, which was what it could have been another 150 point NASDAQ trade with a 3-lot, a very nice day, to me getting chopped up in my XFAs, eventually blowing my XFAs in the second half of the day. And then hitting a daily loss limit in my live account because I got tilted, because I can't learn how to kind of, hold trades with a little more patience and just letting them play out. Because there's nothing wrong with taking a stop out. But for me to cut a trade early and then watch it run and then get chopped up, basically trying to, make back points, that's something I'm trying to fix in my own trading. And having basically 3 great entries back to back to back, only to realize, I guess, a blown pack of XFAs and, at this point, a neutral few $100s in my live account for the last 2 sessions of catching all those tops and bottoms. It's a little frustrating. And it's something that, like I said, I'm always trying to continue to work on in my trading, is to let your trade kind of run, not just let it run loosely with no stop and, your daily loss limit or your maximum loss limit as your risk manager, but letting your original trade thesis kind of just work itself out, rather than, and this can be the same thought of like, hey, take some profit, leave some runners and kind of just see, and then trail your stop from there. But sometimes being scalpy the way I am, and that's why you guys saw the raccoon, I think, in the early parts of slow markets here, is that's my style of trading. I get in, I get out, I get my points, and then I go do something better with the day. But I miss a lot of long opportunities specifically that turn into very, very nice trades for, 50, 100 points, 150. And I, just because I'm good at sometimes picking the right sections to enter a trade, I don't necessarily give it enough room to breathe before I'm sliding my stop, not necessarily to break even, but sliding it 20 to 30 points in the money. And then if it gets tagged, I go on with my day. No harm, no foul. That's, for me, $1,800 in each XFA or in my live account by trading a 3 lot. So the logic is, let your trades kind of work its way out. It was kind of my lesson of today, as well as, when you miss that trade, you can't FOMO back into the next trade. That's something I think we all are guilty of at times, is just constantly looking for the next trade, into realizing, hey, I'm seeing red after missing a 200-point run, and then basically, trying and then getting stopped out in my next trade. Maybe that's where I should shut it down for the day. Maybe that's where I should do what I think Rips likes to call the shot clock, where maybe you take 15 minutes, 30 minutes, and you go do something else for a little bit, and you come back refreshed to look at the screens if you still want to trade, versus doing what I do, get stopped out, and I'm immediately looking for the next trade, the next entry, which is how you spiral in a day like I did today, and you lose whatever, $3,000 times 6 accounts, technically. Not good. So that's that was my trading day. How did everyone else do? How did everyone else do in this kind of choppy early part of the session before that breakout and then more chop in the afternoons? I'd be curious to see if everyone had some good days, bad days. Anyone pass combines? Anyone take payouts today? I'm curious to hear from you all. Lost your XFA. I'm sorry, man. Light green, just as bad as mine. Oh, why are you talking about me? Reached my target. So good job. Pretty mixed bag. Had the best day ever on an XFA. Just got to an XFA flat, blew a combine. Yeah. So pretty mixed bag from the gaggle of people in the chat. But guys, that's trading. I think that we all have good days. We all have bad days. It's how you get back into it tomorrow. And I hope if you had a bad day today, maybe you didn't just immediately spiral into the Globex action here, where maybe you took another trade, maybe you went long out of the open, maybe you went short, whatever it is, but you're just spiraling to a new trade without a real setup, which is kind of the first, let's call it 15, 20, 30 minutes of the Asia session, or before we even get to Asia opening, which is, kind of that 5 p.m. Central Time. If you're just firing off trades immediately, I mean, after a bad day, that may not be the best idea. But the logic is, where do we go from here? Let's talk about it on the NASDAQ, since I think we can talk about it on ES too. And I feel like so many people are NQ traders. It might make more sense to kind of review this week so far, being Tuesday. You had, the overnight session on Sunday night. You had Monday. You had today's session. But we really didn't move much. When you kind of look at the volume profile here, we still are in last week's value, and we pretty much have been just ping-ponging, last week's value area high, right around here at 530s, which is a bit of level I think I have been screaming from the mountaintop. I think Rips was talking about it today. I know Hogue was talking about it yesterday. Just a important area in NQ to continue to pay attention to. Yesterday's settlement was around 520s, but we continue to see like passive selling at that 530 type level which kind of gave me some aspect of, a reason to try to short in that, 550 spot yesterday. You just kind of saw that excess push up, and I was expecting that move back down to 530, which I think was what we were talking about when I even entered the trade on Monday morning. But even tonight in Globex, she kind of came back up to that 530 spot, whatever it was, a few minutes ago even, or I guess right before we came on the air, and we just rejected off it again. So it's going to continue to act as resistance. And the logic I think I was talking about on Sunday, which is until we can kind of meaningfully start building volume kind of in that 600 spot, it may make sense to look for sellers to still be stepping in that general area in the 550s to, 530s range. I caught a short in combines and my personal account up here near 600, and I was sweating today, even taking that trade, because it looked like I could absolutely be blasted another 200 points higher. That was the way it was kind of moving, shortly after lunch, in that like 12:30 to 1 p.m. spot, until I came on, trade with Topstep today. At that 1 o'clock Central Time, I was sweating in this trade, and I got short around 590s. It did not look good. And then we melted, pretty much back down towards, whatever it was, 520s basically. So caught a nice trade there, but, that's just the reason my combines are, halfway to, passing right now. But as I was saying, looking at this, even zooming out a little bit, we are in the top end of this multi-week balance. Basically, if you kind of look at all these clusters of volume profile, like 1 week builds that we keep talking about on my Sunday show, you're still pretty much in this larger cluster that exists between 20,300 and 20,600. So basically the last 2 weeks of value are pretty much overlapping, and we have just been kind of ping-ponging in this zone for multiple sessions. So very possible that could continue, but it's also the longer we stay up here near these highs, after today's session, and after us trying once again to go pierce above 600s, this is where shorting in this spot makes me a little bit nervous, unless, we continue to see these passive sellers stepping in this general area. It just, the longer we kind of sit on the cusp of like 600, I just am getting very worried that we may zoom out here, go to this old distribution of volume going back to July, when this 800 spot has a potential, area of interest written all over it of where buyers could take us with any bit of, as much as the semis and NVIDIA and the Mag 7 have continued to look bullish, or most of them or parts of them have looked very bullish. The longer we hang up here, it just takes, half of those names kind of moving up a percent or two before NQ just is off to the races and at 20,800. So keep that in the back of your mind. The longer we sit above 500, the more worried I'd be to potentially go make that march up to, 21,000 even, but 20,800. And I think this is probably the Hogue's weekly kickoff high, I'm guessing. Yep. I really need to color code these myself so that I know what they are. I keep forgetting to do that. But I feel like Hogue's levels get pinged just about every single week. So if you're not paying attention to those or the Topstep daily levels, I mean, the man's been in the industry forever, and I take whatever math he's using or eyeball, back of the napkin stuff he's doing to spit out these levels. Pay attention to them, because it's pretty rare the last few weeks that we have not pinged at least one of these for sure, if not both in the given, trading week. So, little wide targets. Obviously, we almost came down to 306. I think we got to whatever it was, 340s, 343, I think was the low so far this week. So yeah, I would take that 800 number very seriously if we continue to open above 500 on a day like tomorrow, or into the latter half of the week. Like we talked about on Sunday, it is a relatively lighter news week. Tesla reports tomorrow night. Right? Wednesday, not Thursday. I think Tesla's Wednesday. I'll have to double check. But they themselves, after positive earnings or anything Elon wants to grift this earnings cycle for the last quarter, could send us itself, could drive some bullish moves in the NASDAQ and send us to 20,800. So someone could start doing it after hours, and then, naturally Asia and the London session just continue to push us higher. So just take that very seriously. It's the same logic I was using where if we continue to see volume build above 5,900, it's very possible we could march to ES 6,000, just because it's the big round number everyone keeps talking about. Everyone and their mother is probably sitting there waiting to try to short. So even on ES, let's jump back before I jump to gold. Even on ES, it's still basically in last week's value area. Once again, we came down, we retested last week, tried to retest last week's lows down here in the 60s. Basically, we rejected, and now we're rotating back into last week's value area and this higher volume node up here. So the longer, once again, that we stay kind of building and maybe even once again go try to build volume above 5,900s, I get nervous that we're going to go right to Hoag's big round number here, the weekly kickoff high at 6,000. Thank you, Coach Jay. Tesla is tomorrow after the bell. So all it takes is any of the Mag 7, in my opinion, to get more bullish than NVIDIA has been the last few days, continuing to kind of grind and make new all-time highs. To kind of all we need is just a couple more of those names to really join. We could be off to the races. It's really that simple. I do not look. If ES is continuing to trade, I would say above 59.10s, I really have no interest in potentially fading it. Did I just lose everyone? Am I still here? Andrew, everyone? Can you guys still hear me? Yes. Okay. I think my computer lagged. I saw something buffering. So good. I'm glad I didn't just continue to ramble. I saw the spinning wheel of death. So we are good. Sorry. It looks like something buffered or paused. We're all good though. As I was saying, you need to trade above 5,900s and more specifically like 59.10s. It's getting to that area where I really wouldn't be looking to try to short it. You now 100% need to be in the mindset of buying this if you weren't already, looking for a dip to buy, as Coach Dakota says. I mean, there's a dip right now here at 20,500 and the NASDAQ. Looks like we might go retest the Globex low, but yeah, the longer we stay above 5,900, the more I am feeling like 6,000s is very much in the card this week. So I take that very seriously. The longer we hang above here and the more we continue to build volume in last week's range, that we could just, we're one positive headline or good earnings report away. My mic's messed up. Still? Can anyone confirm? Sounds fine to me. Looks like we're good. Okay. So if you're having issues in the chat, I'm getting word from people behind the scenes that everything is fine. So if it's you, maybe refresh the YouTube page if you're still hearing issues or it sounds choppy. Sounds like we are good. And you guys might be a little bit, keep in mind, there's a little bit of a delay to YouTube, but sounds like we are okay. So thank you everybody for helping you with tech support issues. Internet should be fine at this point. But let's jump over to, let's do GC first, because I don't even want to sniff talking about crude right now with what's, I just can't find a good way to trade it. But what a week once again in gold. We just continued. I think Dakota and Hoag caught the one short opportunity yesterday morning, and then since then, I think right when we basically covered, I think we covered in the 30s. It's just been off to the races once again in this instrument. It's just kind of wild how bullish it's been, and even just looking at the 1 hour for the last couple of weeks, it's just a slow death march higher, and we probably will continue to 2,800 and eventually to my, I guess my Q1, Q2 type target. So whatever, at some point in the first half of next year, I wouldn't be shocked if, we get any sort of recession fear continuation or inflation's not defeated, whatever it is, that gold could continue to move. And 3,000 seems like a decent, reasonable target. Why not? You can say, why not move higher about every other instrument? So I'm going to be bullish and say, why not 3,000 gold in the first half of next year? That doesn't mean we're not going to do, weeks where we're at 2760s right now, that we're not going to pull back, maybe retest more of this volume. I'd be shocked if the lows are in for this week in GC. I know it's only Tuesday, but I'd be shocked if we don't pull back, maybe go retest 2710s. That seems, or 2718s even, kind of this other low from last week, this low volume that we see from last week's profile. Maybe we go fill in some of that before we move higher. Does not sound choppy. Okay, we're all good. I'm going to forget about the mic problems right now. It sounds like we're moving past that. We're on to Cincinnati. So yeah, the logic is I would still be on the lookout. As bullish as I am with GC, you still need to find the right spots to rebid it. Or look for, sellers to passively step in like we saw on Monday. 2750s was just a big psychological number to potentially look to sell off from. So the same is true. You find that spot. Do you get a little weakness and then just join along with those sellers? Nobody should be trying to call a top in this. Because like I said, I think we're on a slow death march over the next 6 months plus 3,000. I don't think anything has changed since, whatever. When we Dakota and I were doing the TopstepTV takeover and we were trading, I think it was right before we broke out to 2,500 and then started this meteoric run. Yeah, it was in August. So it was back. It was like right here when we were still trading in the 2,400s, we're paying 25, made a new all-time high. And then we finally broke. So it's hard to look at that and be bearish outside of looking for rotations back using volume profile to find areas where buyers are likely to step in. And I would say 2,700 is a very, 2696, 2697, or any of these previous weeks of like volume and point of controls here, these value areas would be reasonable targets if you did ever get a larger sell-off in GC. But I would expect buyers to be found, at least in the first attempt, kind of back in these 10s to 20s range, at least in this week. And on a longer time frame, we'll see if we come back and kind of rebid on this volume shelf down here. And it is, I guess we're about 2 minutes away from, isn't the 8 p.m. Central sell-off gold thing that Dakota and the slow markets crew kind of discovered accidentally? That always happens. Let's see if it happens tonight. Let's see if they're watching the show. Let's move to a 5-minute. We got a couple minutes here. Let's see if we get, we're already starting to get a little bit of a sell in GC. That's kind of funny. The 8 p.m. liquidity injection apparently sells off gold a little bit. Not a trading signal, not a short signal, but that seems to be, they're basically, maybe it's a pop, whatever, everyone's kind of back and forth here. I guess the liquidity injection just provides some good volatility. That's probably a better way to say this, in gold at this time during slow markets. And so you get some two-way action and you get usually a more directional move. I guess that's probably a better way to say it. So let's see what happens here. We got about 40 or so seconds before that happens. So we'll have to kind of see. I'm actually curious because I have not, I try, if you guys know me, I don't trade this time of day. I like to spend my evenings after looking at charts most of the day, not looking at charts in the evening. I may check in with Globex, and obviously on Tuesday nights, I'm here with Dakota anyway, who's my trading buddy. So I've been learning more from him about these random things that tend to happen in the overnight since I'm not usually looking. But for me, it's always been using this time period with him to kind of dissect the week and look at it a bit deeper. So we're coming into 8 p.m. now. Let's see if we get some volatility here in GC. So far, it looks to be to the downside, and we are still getting some weakness in the NASDAQ too, as well as ES. It looks like it kind of is rolling over. Let's see if we get any movement here in GC. If not, I will jump back to NQ because that looks like it actually has some legs to the downside potentially. But we haven't really moved. We're like basically where the week opened here at 20,500. And gold looks like a nothing burger. So let's jump over to NQ just, I guess, for a hot second. No, okay, that looked more dramatic on my execution chart than it does on TopstepX here. When I was looking at this this rollover that we had from 530s. I guess it doesn't look as bad as on the 5-minute chart. My 500 volume chart, it looked a little bit more ridiculous, but okay. So we're not moving too much. Let's see if we break this previous low from kind of the 5:20 Central Time. And as I said earlier, guys, if you have questions, I want to freeform this a little bit more. I know, once again, if you joined us late, I am not Coach Dakota. Coach Dakota is recovering from his procedure of having his dentures removed, or his wisdom teeth, whatever we would like to call them. He should be back later in the week. I'm assuming Jay might be covering for him tomorrow. I don't know how fast you recover from your wisdom teeth. I'm assuming his cheeks are hiding chestnuts. If I've seen any, videos of people that have gotten them removed. I know I said dentures. I meant wisdom teeth, guys. Relax, chat. That was supposed to be a joke. Come on. But yeah, I'm Nick. I'm covering for Dakota here tonight. If you guys have caught Tuesday nights slow markets, you usually see the two of us together. So I am doing my trading buddy a favor by covering from him, while he would definitely cover for me if needed during what is most likely going to happen as I am, venturing into becoming a first-time dad, is, leading the lead on some of my trading buddies to cover some of my sessions while I'm dealing with having a little one for the first time. So I know they will cover for me. So that's what we're doing here, is helping each other out when needed. So I'm glad I get to kind of do this a little bit differently than, even my show on Sunday nights is getting to kind of cover Dakota. So I'm sorry if you've been here looking for a trade, you may not find it with me, but I appreciate you all still being here. Dakota's got a great following here on his show. It's kind of crazy to see how much his slow market show has really taken off, and how many people are tuning in every single night, Tuesday night, and it's over 1,000 people in here, and Dakota's not even here. So that says more about him than it does about me. I'm just covering. But the NASDAQ bouncing off that pretty much low of the kind of the Globex open there. So we'll jump to CL here, and then maybe we'll get some questions. We'll jump back to the 1 hour so we can actually look at this a little further out. Yeah, I think on Sunday, you guys got to correct me if I'm wrong. I think, or maybe it was Monday during the show, I think Dakota and I were talking about trying to long crude in the 69s, and then it flushed down and made everybody nervous. And then, of course, naturally, it takes off from there. But on Sunday during my prep show, we were talking about potentially looking for longs, off last week's point of control. I didn't have a great edge if you guys tuned in. A good read even on where to kind of go with crude, just because it does this roller coaster thing constantly and makes me nervous. And on a longer time frame, it looks worse than NQ's charts as far as just having no direction, no opinion, and just tough to kind of get a good read on. I know it tends to move in more directional moves, at least on like a weekly or daily basis. It tends to trend more. But then there's moments when I just look at this and you think, you're buying a dip for a continuation higher like you are here, and then you just get slapped in the mouth and it melts. And now we are kind of trendless in this and just at a larger high volume node. So that's, I think, why on Sunday I was talking about, you have two out of the last 3 weeks of volume in crude, you had kind of a consolidation of a series of, high volume nodes and points of control in this 70s to 71 area. So I'm like, I don't have a good read, but maybe that's where I take a stab long, tried something there. If you kind of start building volume above 70s, you take it and run and you hope for that. If not, if you lose it, you're probably going to go retest the lows from September in these, 65, 64s. So the same is true. It looks like we are starting to continue to kind of build volume back above 70s. So I'd be leaning more to the long side, maybe looking for, a long off 70, 50 if you were to get a dip back down. If not, jumping along with this trend maybe tomorrow for a trip back up to retest this week's high so far at 72s, maybe even fall back into the value area of 2 weeks ago, kind of between 72.80s and 73.80s. Let's see what Hoag's weekly kickoff high is at 73.50. So that actually would make sense to potentially return into 2 weeks ago's value if we were to continue this bullish momentum above 71s. That is probably where we may go. But If you guys have ever seen me never trade crude, then you know I don't really ever trade crude. So I'm not planning on starting that here tonight. But if I had to lean, I'd still be leaning to the long side, just like I would be with looking for dips to buy in GC. On the indices, you guys know I never shy away from trying to short this pig that is this market at all-time highs. And I get punched in the face for it just about every other day that I really try to. But one of these days it's going to pay off. No, yesterday it did. So I will keep doing it because it's my style. I trade short-term exhaustions and I look for 20 to 30 points. So I have no problem fading an all-time high. I'm not looking for, a limit down 8%, 7% down day trying to short the all-time highs. But no, I'll scalp my points. I just need to get better about holding longs. Yeah, if you're trying to short the all-time high and you're looking for anything outside of scalps, you're in for a day like today when it just punches you in the face. So with that in mind, that's crude. Let's jump back to, what do you guys want to look at? NQ? Let's do NQ. So let's see. I guess looking at NQ for tomorrow specifically, or even tonight, you're kind of in. I mean, I'm not going to say any advice tonight because I literally have no edge, no direction. The same logic would be 530s to 550s. You continue to find sellers stepping in. So, if you use MGI, market generated information to kind of guide your trades, maybe if you got a bullish move up, 905s on ES, 570s, 560s potentially on NQ. If you were to get a bullish move up, maybe there's a short opportunity there, or if you caught a good long, maybe that's where I'd start taking profit in the overnight. It's a tough spot. And when you kind of zoom out, like I said, and look at how we've been trading and just us ping-ponging the value area of last week, fade the edges. We may just be in continue to be in a multi-week balance. So, until we kind of clear, like I said, 600s and really probably 640s till you kind of get some bullish volume above that, I would still be leaning towards, hey, do we kind of play this value area rotation that we've been in for, what is this, since the 9th of October, pretty much. So like the last 2+ weeks. Yeah, that's kind of the logic. It's like until you kind of break out of the zone, it's hard to really lean too much one way or the other. So just play the edges. I always like to describe that. And obviously that's the Nick Dolby range play trade when you're just, hey, you're looking to buy around 300 and you're looking to fade, 530s to 550s. So we'll see where we go from here. If I had to guess, I think up on the longer time frame. I just there until we have a catalyst, there's no reason for us to continue to really build anything below 20,000, even 20,050s. Kind of this old point of control from a few weeks ago. I think without a catalyst, we're not going to go much below 20,000. It's hard for me to really look at it. Obviously, one bad day, we could easily do that. We can drop 800 points, 900 points in NQ in the blink. We've seen it before. And then we also see it V recover by lunchtime. So take that with what you will. I just think it's incredibly difficult to hold shorts in this market until something changes, and nothing's changed. And I've been saying that since July. We had weakness in August, but the Bank of Japan was causing whatever fiasco that they were causing those 2 days. And then they walked back their statements and we shot to the moon from the August lows. So, and that was the only catalyst in the recent times that had done anything. And ever since then, we've just been marching to all-time highs. So we got to take that with as we will and continue to kind of build off of that. So, as I said, I'm going to give some questions, guys, but if there's anything else you want me to talk about or cover here too, throw it in the chat. I don't know how much longer outside of, I'll go through these questions and see what else we can really get ourselves into trouble here with. But if there's more you want me to go over, cover, talk about, I'm happy to, if it's within my level of expertise, which is not always I'm not always the smartest person in this space. You guys know I'm still learning and evolving in my trading and my style every single day. I don't know everything. I like to learn from other people too. So, but I'm happy to cover it if there is something that is relevant to y'all. All right, let's get to some questions, shall we? We come for slow market trades. Can you trade? Can you try a trade on a practice account for the show? Well, I don't have a practice account in my TopstepX platform. And I was serious, guys. If I did see a trade, I've taken trades on slow markets before. It's just super rare. So we can, like I said, I haven't seen anything yet. I mean, outside of me looking to short 530s again, which is it's a coin flip type of trade in the overnight. But that was the only thing I really saw when I was coming on the air that, you could potentially trade. So if I do see something, guys, I will. There's no lean here outside of, you're playing so far the edge of this Globex range, but I'm looking at this and still thinking like this could still trend downwards. So I'm not looking to really long this right now. I haven't seen buyers really try to step in yet. I don't, guys. I had all of my practice accounts removed. I don't know if there's a way to enable it somewhere, but there is not one in here. Trust me, I tried. If you guys don't remember from the reversal challenge during Dakota and Mai's TopstepTV takeover, I used a combine like an idiot and I blew that combine doing the reversal challenge, or the next day after, because I think I had like a $1,500 loss. So I do not have a practice account. I need to figure out with support how to eventually enable that for some of these activities, so that way I can take some trades with you guys. I'm not going to risk these combines that I am trying to get back to XFAs after losing my XFAs, this morning. So we will figure that one out. But yes, I would love to have a practice account so that I can actually, articulate things. But for me, guys, the way I trade, there's not a great setup here just yet for anything in the overnight session. Nothing that would really push me into a trade right now. I do have a question. I am jumping on a live, I'm assuming a live account with Topstep in the near future. Any tips? So if it's a live account with Topstep, don't change what got you there. Clearly you've been consistent. That's the one thing I will say about traders that are moved to live. I'm not privy to like the secret sauce or the Kool-Aid that Mick and Brett, and the team basically used to truly kind of say, yes, this trader is ready. But the one thing I know for a fact is you are consistent. So clearly there's something working as far as your entries, your take profits, your strategy going forward, should not change. You need to do what got you there. So my advice is don't try to oversize. Keep in mind, if you got, let's say 5 XFAs, dumped over to a live account, and maybe you took a withdrawal, I would hope you paid yourself a little bit to reward, the effort that you put in. But from someone like me that's been in their live account since January, it's a different trade when you're now trading one account with the same risk parameters that you were trading 5. So you could trade a little smaller. You could think of it as, compounding. That's not necessarily the case with your live account. You have to be a little bit more strategic because, otherwise you're going to be thinking you're swinging for the fences while you're trying to grow that account instead of taking the same type of base hits that you were probably taking in your XFAs to actually, kind of build that balance. So just treat it like you would. And the other thing I will 100% say, I don't care how good the sims get with the CME, with Rhythmic, with whoever provider is, or the direct feed I think that TopstepX has for the sim environment versus the live environment. The live environment is significantly faster. I don't know how to describe it. The way the DOM moves, just the speed of the tape is just a little bit different. And it takes, if you've only been trading sim and then you get thrown into it, it may catch you by surprise. You may subconsciously not realize that it's faster, that it operates just at the millisecond difference that it does, but it can affect you. Obviously it's going to affect your fills. But the speed of the tape just is a little bit different. So just be prepared for that. The way things move, it's going to be different, and it can really catch you off guard if you do not know that at first. And if you are someone that jumps back and forth, let's say, you had 5 more XFAs, or you're going to work on combines again, after those got dumped into your live account, just know when you bounce back and forth between live and sim, you're gonna start to really kind of think or notice that difference. You can really feel it at times. I do every time I switch from trading Topstep XFAs and then having Motive Wave on another screen. It's very different for me with my live account. It's just like I can look at the DOM and it looks and acts a little bit different. So the speed of the tape's different. So just do what got you there, but just know there may be that little bit of a learning curve. So maybe even trade a little smaller as you're getting comfortable, kind of to the way live fills really work, and the way you have to kind of manage your stops and everything else. Just maybe just kind of get comfortable before you really open it up, like probably you had in your XFAs. I think you're talking about my big green line on this next question. Is the indicator VWAP or a moving average? So this is a 21 EMA, and I use this. This is okay. Bad example here. This is a 21 EMA, but the whole logic is on a 5-minute chart, which is like kind of my execution chart. It can keep you on the right side of trend intraday if you're a day trader. So I like to use a 21 EMA on a 5-minute just because it'll keep you on the right side of trend and tell you if you're fading it. It's really stupid, but this thing actually does act as resistance. I know some of the EMAs do, some do work better than others depending on time frame, but on a 5-minute EMA, a 21 EMA on a 5-minute tends to be a good good signal or directional cue of direction of trend. So I just like to use it. It's on a lot of my execution charts as well as VWAP and some others, but on Topstep X, I like to use it just because it's just something else to kind of keep in mind because I have other ones on my MotiveWave charts. I see someone asking for my volume profile settings. I know I do this every Sunday, but that's it. I do this for all of mine. So on ES, NQ on my MotiveWave will be probably more like 2 or 3 points. Just FYI, I don't adjust it for each one. But on ES, I keep it as 4 ticks or 1 point for my rows. And then I keep my value areas for you guys to see them at 70%. I roughly know where the low volume nodes are in the previous week, like previous week value area lows, value area highs, but I like to keep them color coded for you guys to also see so that you know what I'm talking about when I say last week's value area low was X. So I will keep them there, and you can kind of see my color schemes. But for me, most of the time they're all one color, but I keep it the white and blue for y'all to see. So that's my settings. Hey, Nick, I want your opinion. I had a successful week with a strategy. I'm halfway through a 50K combine using only 1 and 2 micros. When do I start to trust my strategy? Well, probably, I am not the king of back testing and any sort of logic, but you usually need a larger sample size than a week to say something's working. And the only reason I say that is because let's zoom out to ES. I don't know if you're trading ES or NQ, but the same logic is going to be true for, let's call this the last week. And it's what I was just saying. The last week we've been in a range. We've been ping-ponging ranges. So the reason I say you need longer than a week is because a lot of the time the market is in balance. It could be in multi-week balances, but you also need to see what your strategy looks like in a trending market. Are you fading certain areas of the auction? Are you fading the edges, of the day's range? Are you taking breakouts? Just, it kind of depends. So it's something to keep in mind is, yes, for the last, let's call it 10 days, we've been basically in a range, ping-ponging between 59.20s and 58.60s. So roughly a 60-point range. So your strategy may function in that, but it may not function in, a breakout, let's say P-shaped week, more like this, where, you have a multi kind of level distribution of volume where we are kind of trending up, some consolidation and then moving up again. So does your strategy work in weeks or series of weeks like that when a trending market too? Because it doesn't always trade in trend or in ranges. It does have breakouts. It does have breakdowns. So you need to kind of think about your strategy in multiple time frames too, rather than a 1 week. Not to still put any, wind out of your sails there, but I would say a week is probably not long enough to prove a strategy, but clearly you're doing something right, because I would also say whatever you're doing as far as risk management, taking profit, clearly there's something to it. So that is always going to be, job number 1 is going to be capital preservation. So you're clearly doing something well in that front, regardless of your execution strategy. You know when to walk away. You're not over trading and such. So I'm assuming, I don't see your stats, but just based on what you said, I would assume you have some level of risk management in this week. So keep doing that. Your strategy is going to always evolve over time. Can I see your indicator list? Yeah. So we have visible range, volume profile. Ignore the link one, just between charts. Top step levels and the 21 EMA on a 5 minute. It's on a 1 hour right now, but 21 EMA. And as I said, some of my trading friends and I called this the big green line. It was, a thesis by somebody on Twitter. And then a good buddy of mine actually wrote a college, let's call it a college level, like multi-page article on proving it out with stats. Actually, it was very interesting. I'd have to ask him for it, but it was a good read for a comedy's sake. But I did not think of the strategy or the big green line naming convention. It's just something that I've seen on Twitter and was used. And then a buddy of mine wrote a paper on, because there is some stats, like I said, to back it up. So that's my indicators on Topstep X. I keep it pretty simple, guys, because I'm a volume trader. And then I got my delta by price inside of Motive Wave and some of my other, exhaustion indicators and things like that. Well, we are taking off here. It looks like, well, no, we're not. We're like 10 points higher than when someone was telling me to look for a trade. So we haven't really moved, but it does look like it may be trying to, go break out towards 530s on NQ again, but we'll see. Dakota did say buy the dip. He did say coming out of anesthesia to buy the dip. Wherever that dip is, we don't know, but he said buy it. And if you bought it in the overnight so far, you're doing probably fine, because you can pretty much buy anything and eventually it's going to go up on a long enough time frame. Hey, Nick, do you draw your individual volume profiles, or are those automatically drawn? So you are referencing these ones. So currently on Topstep X, the indicator that allows you to plot this automatically is not loaded yet. Hopefully it comes soon, but it's not an issue, because all you need to do is go to volume profile fixed range, pulls up the drawing tool, and then you do what I do every Sunday before my show, is I just draw the previous week's volume profile, draw over the previous week's candles, and then it's going to spit out this volume profile for me. So we can grab this week so far and last week's, and it's just going to give me that overlay. Super simple. And I just do that, and they don't go away unless you delete them. So you could do what I do, which is, draw them on a 1 hour or a 4 hour, whatever's, your longer time frame of choice. And then when you jump back to, your 1 minute, your 5 minute, whatever you execute on, they're still there, but then they're not in the way. And then on the right, you have the visible range volume profile, which will give you the candlesticks that are on screen and the volume for them. So that's the way to look at it. But yeah, they haven't quite added the indicator, because I know I use it in TradingView myself to kind of spit out weeklies and monthly volume. And even like, I think I do a rolling 5 days kind of thing on one of them too. I was screwing around with. But the logic is hopefully that comes, but you don't have to, we can still do it now. It just takes the actual manual, 30 seconds to draw it for whatever time frame you're looking for. So you could still do a month if that's what you wanted, or just zoom out to a 4 hour and, scroll back to the calendar of where you're trying to get an idea from with your visible range. Super easy. Nick, if you are trading a short time frame to make a quick profit, but it's counter trend on a longer time frame, would you use smaller size? The first piece is it really depends on your risk parameters and your style of trading. I don't really change anything about mine. My stops are pretty tight, guys. If you've seen me trade, I'm usually operating NQ with a 3 lot and anywhere between a 10 and a 15 point stop. So it can work that way. I don't really change my size, but yes, if you're trading something like me, which is short-term exhaustions, looking for, rotations out of, that are counter trend on even short time frame, scalps like I do, there's ways to use smaller size. There's also ways to just get your points, raccoon it, and get out like I do, which is, 10, 20 points. And there's no shame in doing a quick, how would I describe this? Just like dragging your stop to profit, 10 points, 15 points, whatever. And if it nicks it, great. You're counter trend trading and you took some points out of the market. You don't have to think about it much more than that. I don't really, like I said, change my size. But there's usually a logic to my entry, even when I am fading it. Like if you were to fade today's high, not today's high, I guess today's morning high, it did provide a nice short off settlement at 520. So you were counter trend trading, but you could have seen, a big seller potentially step in there. You could have seen a stop run that got us there. And then somebody, re-offered at that spot and sent us back down another 60 points. So it really depends on your entry. If you are counter trend trading, even for scalping, you need to know where you are dead wrong. And also you need to be quick to just get out. You need to take your points and move on. And you need to be strategic about where you're actually entering that trade that is counter trend, because there's a method to my madness. Yesterday's high was 554. I entered at 550. There was a method to that madness. There usually is. If I'm trying to short the market that does hold my beer like that out of the open, there's probably a reason why I'm entering. So just keep that in mind. And most of my levels are found with volume, and then using things like Bookmap or, my chart book with Order Flow Labs to kind of find good exhaustions that I can execute off of. Or I'm seeing, something on a footprint, something on Delta that changes. It really depends on the situation. I could see a ton of iceberging coming in on Delta, near like a stalling high of the day. And maybe I'm entering there. It's counter trend, but I'm seeing an iceberg come in. Maybe I want to get alongside that guy until he gets run over or stops shoveling, sell orders or buy orders in the opposite direction. Just depends. Sorry, there was one more. Oh, there was a couple more. Sorry, guys. I missed a few others. I kept scrolling. Nick, can you please explain how to set up multiple profiles on the same chart? I'm assuming you're talking about volume profiles, like these ones that we were just talking about. What is this? Oh, it's because I'm too zoomed out. I'm assuming you're talking about this, like all of these. I think we explained it. These are not manually, or these are not auto drawn. We've been doing my show for weeks, going back to kind of early August. So this is literally my Sunday show. We've just drawn one every week on the show since I've been doing it. So we've done a number of sessions. So that's how I've been doing it. But you can go back every week, month, whatever you want to do, and you just draw them. You can do it by days if you really wanted to, depending on your time frame. Nick, how much room do you typically give the stop loss when trading the New York session? It's still typically 10 points in the early part of the first 30 minutes. I think that was the latter part of your question. I keep it pretty tight, but I'm also super quick to take profit. But because the market can move so fast at that point, I am much less greedy about just taking even $300, $500, whatever it is. So 6 points, 5 points, 7 points, 10, and putting a take profit in there just to kind of get loose, if that makes any sense. Like just get a trade out of the jitteriness of kind of the early part of the session, just to, not feel like I have to take a trade. Like I've already taken one at that point and it's green. So I'm strategic as far as, hey, I'd rather just take a winning trade and go from there. Maybe with my first trade in the first 30 minutes. I don't usually always trade the first 30 minutes. In fact, the first 15, a lot of the time, I'm pretty hands off. I like to let things develop, especially if we have if you guys saw the way we were trading from the pre-market yesterday, where we just basically mooned up 200 points. I think there was one red candle in an hour and a half in NQ, going from the pre-market to whenever I took that short at 550s. So sometimes it's really stupid, but it's like, I will take a quick 5-point NQ trade with the volatility just to kind of get the itch out of my body to take a trade. And then I can sit and just kind of watch. It's stupid, but it kind of keeps me from doing things that are stupid later. And I know that's not the best strategy, and there's not a lot of value or edge there, but sometimes it's just as simple as like, hey, it looks like the buyers are defending the 1 minute opening range. So I'm going to just, jump in with a single on NQ just to kind of get 5-10 points real quick to see if I can, catch a piece of something and kind of, if it builds or if I can add to it, sure. But most of the time it's just to kind of get that itch to take a trade in the New York Open out of my bloodstream, especially when you see a bullish move in the overnight, or just a large move, not even a bullish move, but you see a wider move in the London session, and you kind of you're doing your pre-market prep, you're having your coffee, and you're like itching to take a trade. So it kind of just gets that out of your system, and just then you can kind of see the markets clearly. It's really stupid, but it works. Nick, what hurts most? This is a good question. Losing an XFA or hitting the DLL in the live account. Well, today sucks regardless, I guess I can say. It wasn't fun. And it snowballed. I lost the XFAs first, and then I hit the DLL out of, kind of tilts of just doing it. They're both real to me because, guys, I can pull money out of both. And I would say my live account, I'm going to lean and say it hurts more because since I've had it since January, guys, I can make $20 in it a day and take, maybe not $20. Let's call it $500 in a day, and then immediately request that $500 at the end of the day. I can do that every day for the rest of my life if that's what I want to do. Any of my winning days, I can just take the money because I've been in them for more than 30 days of $200 days. So that, 90% of whatever's in there is mine to keep, and I can do that every single day. So in theory, a $3,000 loss, that is truly $3,000 to me that I could have had in my pocket tonight. If I just didn't trade today and took $3,000 out, that's my money. So that, I would say, once you've kind of reached that threshold in the live accounts, it stings. It definitely does. And it stings more in my live account, especially doing it on air with you guys. The humbling truth of losing $3,000 live in front of 6,000 people in the mornings. It sucks. And it's, cause I think, it's just a tougher experience because it is real money and it is truly like verified. It's not like I'm losing fake sim money as an affiliate and, whatever else they like to do. But it's not real to them. This is real to me, guys. This is how I pay my bills. This is how I paid my bills for well over the last year. So I take this very seriously, and that's $3,000. That it really is $3,000. I'm about to have a kid. That's really $3,000 that we could use at any time. But that's trading. That's kind of what I signed up for, and that's why that's what keeps me coming back every day. I love this shit. It's the truth. Nick, what size combine do you prefer, and what strategy do you recommend for passing? I have always traded the 150K combines. For some reason, maybe it's just the way I trade, my style, my risk, same thing. I'm more of a scalper, so I tend to operate off, fading low volume areas for trips back into higher volume areas. So to pass them, it really just comes down to, you have to know when to add a little size. And you also have to know when to walk away. Typically my winning days in combines are anywhere from $2,000 to $3,000 to half of the limit. And, basically doing $9,000 in 2 days. I've just gotten comfortable with, being able to trading 3 to 5 lots and doing that 2 to 3 times a day in combines and being able to pass it. But that's just using my same strategy. I don't necessarily change anything about combines compared to my live account outside of, I may throw a little bit more size in combines, just knowing that it's truly not real to me. It's obviously there's a fixed cost associated, but I just have to treat it a little differently because otherwise I'm going to get tilted because I blew some combines or I, got stopped out in trading a combine. I just try to get myself out of that because if I get into that cycle, then I'm going to force trades. So it just kind of is what it is. I trade my setups. I trade my strategy. I don't change anything between XFAs and live and combines. I just may sling a little bit more size and maybe a little bit more strategic about making sure I am not taking losses in the combines. So I am happily taking an extra trading day in theory in a combine because I'm scalping psychotically, if I'm trading, let's call it a 5 lot on NQ, I may be happily sliding a stop to plus $1,000, plus 1,500 And then if it gets tagged, hey, do I see another trade? Great. If not, I'll come back the next day. So I'm much less likely to get stopped out on combines than I would say I am taking a trade off in profit and kind of just moving forward, whether it hit my full take profit or not. I'm just less likely to take losses in combines. It's just kind of the way I scalp them, if that makes any sense, just to take money constantly off the table, given that it's sim and that it's, my risk is defined of the cost of the combines. And yeah, someone said it. There's a time cost associated to the combines. It really is, especially, there's the investment in doing it, but also it's the exercise of like, it's not hard for me to pass them. It really isn't. It's just the effort that goes into it in the timeline. So for me, time is always going to be money. So the longer I'm spending, blowing XFAs like an idiot, I'm going to be back in combines, and that's less time that I can focus on actually building my accounts back up. So it is almost like a time suck. So I try to avoid having to constantly go back to combines. For me, I tend to always get in bad cycles. Like if I get XFAs dumped into my live account, that's when I usually have bad cycles of blowing a couple combines or blowing the next first 5 that I attempt, just because I'm kind of trying to operate on the time frame of like, hey, I want to get back. I want to get these XFAs back because I just got them moved to my live. I want to trade 6 accounts again. And I know that's probably going away for the likes of me and Dakota and other live traders in the future. But for the time being, I still enjoy doing it. I know we can get into a million different conversations about, copy trading multiple accounts and all that stuff. But it really is a time investment more than even a financial investment at times for me. So, but that's, let's see, are there any more questions? Well, that was all the questions. So how'd I do, guys? How'd we do? How was the first, or I guess Coach J has covered for Dakota in the past, so I can't say the first Coach Dakota-less so slow markets. But did we have some fun? Did we learn something? I hope everyone enjoyed it. Thank you guys for bearing with me. I know I'm not Coach Dakota. I know I'm not, number 2 on the leaderboard. I'm up there, but I'm not quite as good as buying the dip as Dakota is. That's one thing I will say, and I'm trying to learn from him, is to stop being as bearish sometimes intraday and just close my eyes and get long and think more, where am I buying this versus hate watching it and then trying to find a spot to potentially short it. I don't know why my brain works this way. I think I'm a little burnt out, and another trip at all-time highs, and we just were there in July, is probably doing something to my psyche a little bit. So I'm very much looking forward to becoming a dad here in the coming weeks. We're like T-minus 2 to 3 weeks before I most likely am going to be a dad. So I'm looking forward to taking a little time myself. And I know for a fact when that, time period comes where I'm taking a few weeks at least away from trading and away from the show, you guys will be in good hands with the likes of Coach Jay, Coach Dakota, and everyone else on the Topstep team, keeping us entertained, keeping us sane, and providing us with some aspects of education in this crazy game that we call trading. So I hope everyone had a wonderful night with me covering for Coach Dakota. We wish him the best. I don't know if he's going to be back tomorrow night. I think it might be Coach Jay. Who knows? We'll see. Maybe he's feeling better, but if not, like I said, you guys will be in great hands the rest of the week until Coach Dakota is feeling much more like himself and is ready to attack these slow markets with you. So thank you guys once again for giving me your time and having a little fun with me here on a Tuesday night. I know it's a little different. Thank you for bearing with me. I wish you guys a wonderful evening. I will see you all tomorrow morning with Coach Jay and Nick4ATick back on Fast Markets tomorrow morning together, looking for some great trades. So enjoy the rest of your evening, have some fun, trade safe, and we will see you bright and early on Fast Markets. Cheers, guys.